Well, we had this request. There is this amazingly imaginative breaking of the Gaza siege by a small boat run by the Free Gaza movement, and they wanted some academics to go. And at 2 days' notice, we found we were able to be free, cancelled all our appointments and went. And the reason was that they wished to get out a number of, as many as they could, of the students who were trapped in Gaza by the Israeli siege. And there's no knowing what the Israeli Navy will do, so it felt safer to have some respectable international academics on the boat to ensure against the Israelis intercepting.
There had been one or two students on an earlier boat. This was the fourth trip, the fifth boat. But it was the first boat that was organised in order to get students out specifically as its target. They have real difficulty. This is a tiny boat. There are thousands of people in Gaza with pressing, emotionally tearing reasons to leave. And for Free Gaza to find who to allocate this scarce resource to is very difficult. But they had decided this time it would be students. It would be students who had visas to enter another country, who had places in university. Most of them had scholarships, and none of them had a record of anything that could even loosely be described as terrorism. So there was absolutely no reason that they should not be allowed to leave Gaza, except for this brutal policy of the Israelis that Gaza is a terrible place to which nothing may go in and nothing may come out.
There's another aspect to this. We were a very small delegation, and that was deliberate, because the more people you send in and have to bring out again, the less spaces there were for students. So there were just two of us, so that the maximum number of students could get out.
Israelis have all sorts of fears. They do not want people going into Gaza, but their bigger fear is the world noticing what is happening in Gaza. So they were in a dilemma. They could either let us through, which was uncomfortable for them, or they could stop us on the high seas, which would have produced a significant media event, which would have drawn attention to that pattern of action in Gaza. And for them, us being there was the much smaller problem. What they do not want is the world to recognise the crime against humanity that they're conducting day by day in the siege of Gaza.
Previous Free Gaza boats have been stopped by the Israeli Navy and interrogated verbally and then been allowed to pass. In our case, an Israeli boat came up, but not very close, sort of scrutinised us with, no doubt, high-powered electronic mechanisms, and then went away. There was no sense inside, in fact, no sense of optimism, I would say, in Gaza. There's resolution to stick it out, but no sense that there's movement.
It's why it's important. That's the other important aspect of the boat. Bringing even a few individuals into Gaza who can talk to the people of Gaza and say, we care about what's happening to you, these are projects we can plan to do together over the internet and by virtual communication, is an enormous morale boost. And it was almost embarrassing, the warmth with which we were welcomed. We often felt we were carrying a weight and a prestige that didn't belong to us and represented their need to be heard and to have people just talk to them as human beings.
Yes. Well, the spaces that would have been taken up by live members of a delegation were instead taken up by crate after crate of medicines, many of which had been donated by organisations who do not wish to be named, but are of a very respectable kind, who found this as the best way they could get their humanitarian aid into Gaza.
As well as medicine, there was special baby formula, which the Islington Yibna support group had raised money for.
This is in a sense symbolic. Obviously the stuff that we take in does some good, and the students that we get out do some good, but it is just a tiny trickle compared with what is needed in both directions. But it is good that the siege is being broken, and broken in a rather dramatic manner.
Free Gaza Boat can't be running return trips for students to get them there and back again. The only answer is to reopen the Eretz and Rafah crossings and to get the airport reopened so that Gaza can take its place again in the world.
It is an outrage. It is, I think, in technical terms, a crime against humanity. We've had nearly 50 people die at checkpoints because they were not allowed through to reach hospital treatment. We've had close to 300 people die because of the lack of appropriate medication. No cancer drugs available, can you imagine, for 1.5, 2 million people. And at the very small level, we visited a hospital struggling against the odds with missing drugs, and they have quite an elaborate piece of equipment which was donated to them, which is an ultrasound, and it's not working. Why isn't it working? Because the electricity keeps going on and off. They have to change from the main supply to their to their generator, and in the process all the parts of the machinery are liable to fail, and a relatively small component of this ultrasound has failed, and it is sitting there out of use because there is no way you can bring the small part in to make an expensive and extremely useful piece of equipment work again. So it is a crime against humanity, which is infinite in the level of details in how it penetrates the lives of those people in Gaza. On the other hand, I also bring back the sense of extraordinary adaptability of the Gaza population, so that somehow, despite their remarkable and unforgivable situation in which they've been placed, they managed to make a life. They work their way around things, and I think it is a tribute to their humanity and to the complexity and sophistication of their society that these things are still workable. You have a working society still there. Of course, if the Israeli foot on the throat of Gaza should happen to get a little bit heavier than they thought they were doing, then you will have not just a humanitarian crisis, you will have a humanitarian disaster.
The whole strategy on West Bank and Gaza is to create that understanding among Israelis that Arabs are not people demanding of their humanity, their compassion, their respect. And I saw it in so many, many ways. I saw it at a checkpoint, where to go through a checkpoint, to be called forward through the influx control.
This is West Bank.
This is West Bank. This is West Bank. This is going from Bethlehem to Jerusalem.
There was no influx or exflux from Gaza.
To go through the first part of the control, you are called forward through a loudspeaker. Not through any loudspeaker, but through the most tinny, the most alienating, the most Dalek-like tannoy you have ever heard. So you are waiting to go through. You are not sure whether you're going to get through or not, because the whole system is designed to randomly reject numbers of people each time. And you get an instruction to move forward barked at you by a voice from someone who is hidden from you, because the people who control the checkpoints are not visible to the people going through the checkpoints. Right? And if that isn't enough, this inhuman order is barked not in your language, but in Hebrew.